Right, okay, hello, Tom Maguire. Let's do a quick review on Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within. Now, this is an audiobook, came out on Audible 17th of March this year, so nice and new. I thought I'd give it a listen because I've obviously heard a lot about Tony Robbins over the years. If you're into personal development at all, you'll have heard of Tony Robbins. You'll have seen him online, on YouTube. Loads of motivational stuff. He's really good talking about money. He's worth about $500 million nowadays. He's probably one of the top personal development sort of gurus, although he's got a program or a documentary on Netflix at the minute called I Am Not Your Guru, so obviously he's not really a guru, although that's kind of really what he is. And he gets up and he's full of energy and he inspires people, he gets people on their feet, he gets them shouting out all sorts of cheesy stuff. It's a bit like being in some sort of weird church where everyone's in a trance and he's basically just getting everyone what to do, like some kind of weird puppet master. But pretty interesting to watch, and I think as long as you take people like him with a bit of a pinch of salt, and you kind of approach it intelligently, and you're not too gullible or sort of easily led, then I think actually he's really quite good. He comes out with some really interesting stuff in this book. There were times I found it was a little bit boring in places, a bit repetitive, which is probably suited to some of his seminars, having that repetition, sort of drumming it into people and stuff like that. But when you're listening to it in your headphones and you're doing a bit of gardening or trying to get a bit of stuff done around the house or on a break from work or whatever, it is a bit like, come on, can we get to the next point now kind of thing. I've heard that now, it's just getting a bit boring. But like I always say with personal development, if you just take away one useful thing from a book that you read or from a book that you listen to, whether it takes you 10 hours, a few days, however long it takes to get through, if you get one piece of useful information or inspiration or motivation that kind of impacts you and kind of resonates with you in some way, then the chances are that's going to influence you in a positive way. And over years, I suppose, weeks, sometimes months, sometimes I suppose, but over years certainly, if you implement it in the right way, then that's going to have a really positive impact on your life. So this book, I found there were probably 2 or 3 bits like that. There was certainly one bit that kind of impacted on me, that I will take away, and that was, without kind of giving any spoilers away, he basically was out with his family in a restaurant and he did this kind of big elaborate kind gesture to one of the waiters there, and he basically talks about how that came back and paid back years later again and again in different sorts of ways. And I kind of like that because I sort of thought that's something I would normally feel a bit too British about and a bit too sort of stubborn and kind of wouldn't want to do, but actually if I dug inside myself and made myself kind of do it and kind of dug deep, then I could imagine doing that, and actually it would be quite interesting to see what happens. I think sometimes people just dump on you anyway, no matter what you do, but it's quite interesting to think that if you can kind of get over yourself a little bit and do something like that, that actually that positivity can come back to you and pay you back. I think like all these things, if you do it looking for something to pay you back, then it's less likely to work. If you can try and get yourself in a place where you genuinely care and you want to do good for other people, then that's going to put you in a better position. So it depends on your kind of motivation as well. But that was one bit I took away anyway. He also talks about Roy Disney, who was the son of Walt, who was showing a reporter around Disneyland in Florida when it came out, when it was opened. And he says how this little shit of a reporter tried to wind him up by saying, oh, it's a shame Walt hasn't seen this, isn't it? And Roy kind of turned to him as a bit of a class act and kind of said, oh no, Walt definitely saw it. And the fact that he saw it is why you're now privileged enough to see it today. In other words, visualization is really important. If you're successful and you think big enough, then you can make things happen with visualization. But if you're a snide little reporter who just wants to be bitter and jealous, you're probably going to try and say something nasty like that. But actually, yeah, he's kind of saying you wouldn't know about that, would you, necessarily, which is a bit snobby, mate. But so visualization, really important if you're going to be successful. We've kind of read that before in different books, like The Magic of Thinking Big and things like that. But this book, or audiobook I should say, like I say, I think it's from one of his seminars. I think he came out with a book in 1999 called Unleash the Power Within, I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure if that was just an audio. I think it might have been a paperback as well. So I don't know if it's basically very similar to that. I suspect it's adapted and changed and evolved over the years quite significantly. But it's easy to listen to. It's fast paced. I think he's very motivating. I think he's quite inspiring in some way, some of the stuff. I didn't take huge amounts from it. It was about 6.5 hours. It might be 6:50 long, I think. So it's pretty short. Didn't take long to get through. But yeah, if you want something kind of deep that's gonna kind of reach you like in some of the things that I've read recently, then it's not going to do that. But it is, there are some worthwhile things in there, I think, definitely. But you could potentially argue that you could save yourself those 6.5 hours by just listening to some of his videos on YouTube as well. He's got some pretty good stuff on there, so potentially it kind of really is up to you. There are some fans out there of Tony Robbins who absolutely love him, who will listen to and read absolutely everything that he possibly does, and I think this one's got like 250 reviews so far on Audible, and they're all 5 stars, so that goes to show he's got a pretty die-hard fan base, really, a pretty strong following. And there is a reason for that, I think. Some people say he's a bit of a fraud, he's a bit of a scammer, but I think when someone's worth kind of at least $500 million and they do the sort of thing that he does, which to be fair, what he does is quite unique to him, but you've got to sort of imagine that maybe they are quite talented at being sort of salespeople and extracting money out of people. Their courses go for thousands of dollars and stuff, but people rave about the difference that it makes for them. And actually, if you spend loads of money on something like that, that suggests that you're really committed. And if you are really committed, then the chances are you are going to improve yourself. So personal development is about making that commitment to yourself to make a change. And actually, if you want to spend $1,000 or $2,000 to go and see someone and get really fired up, and you can feel it right in your core, you can feel it in your heart and your mind, and you're really inspired and motivated. If that causes you to make positive changes in your life that are then going to improve things for you, then it's $1,000 or $2,000 well spent, as far as I'm concerned. If you're someone who is in huge amounts of debt and you've got kids and things like that, and it's going to put you in an even worse situation, then don't even think about it. That's it's crazy. But don't know, who am I to kind of recommend what you spend your money on, basically. But I think there are people out there who kind of give scare stories and say that they're there to just rip people off, but I'm not sure that's entirely true, really. But you don't have to spend any money. Just listen to the books, listen to the free stuff on YouTube. It's there. There's loads of stuff out there. There's loads of material out there. He talks about, not in this audiobook, but he has talked about Jim Robbins in the past being Jim Rohn, being one of his mentors. And if you follow this channel at all, you will know that he's one of my favourites of all time. Personally, I don't think there's any comparison between the two. I think Jim Rohn is absolutely fantastic. For me, Jim Rohn is just that down-to-earth, salt-of-the-earth kind of old man American who just tells it like it is. Absolutely no BS whatsoever. If you don't like things, change it. You're not a tree. Those sorts of quotes, just really kind of straightforward, and just telling you how ridiculous you are to kind of moan about certain things and stuff. And I really like listening to him. I think he's absolutely brilliant. He's got a really unique voice as well. But I've ranted on before about Jim Rohn, so I don't need to do that again today. But there is a link between the two of them, I would say. They're similar on some level. What else can I say about Tony Robbins? He has done a documentary on Netflix at the minute, which is called I Am Not Your Guru, which I watched. And I actually found that a little bit disappointing. It almost I thought it was going to make me like him more. Well, I didn't dislike him before, but it kind of put me off him very slightly. I just found, I'm not quite sure why, I can't remember, it was a little while ago I watched it now, but I just found it a little bit irritating to watch. I didn't think that put him in a particularly great light, that one, but give it a go, see what you think. But neuro-linguistic programming, which is something that he kind of specialises in and kind of talks about, and something that he uses, is a really powerful tool. So if you want to kind of read about that, I would definitely recommend that. There are some really rubbish books out there on NLP, but there are some good ones as well, so make sure you do your research and look them up. If I get a chance, I'll put a link underneath on the blurb as to some of the ones that are a bit better, a bit more worthwhile looking at. But this is just a really, cheesy American. I think us British, we're quite self-deprecating, and we can be a bit kind of anti putting ourselves out there, which can make personal development harder. I think we kind of almost need to embrace that American kind of cheese sometimes, and just sort of stand up and give it a hell yeah and that sort of bollocks, and kind of come out of ourselves a little bit. I think, I know, I do really. I can be very kind of far too concerned about seeming kind of cool and kind of staying in my shell than actually just being the goofy kind of fool that I am, really. And I think when you are more authentic and less scared about being who you actually are, then I think you're far more likely to progress, basically. And that's what I get from a lot of these American kind of personal development types. I think, you know, that cheesiness, that kind of brashness. I think it's quite good. You don't have to copy them. You take from people who you see as fairly successful. You take little bits and pieces, don't you? And it's about kind of taking the best bits from the people around you, I suppose, and kind of trying to work on keeping the worst bits away and not letting those bad bits influence you. But yeah, you know, keep an open mind with this one. Give it a listen. I think it's pretty motivating. Tony Robbins, can't beat him. Plenty of people love him. Give it a go.